It was a cold winter night in the middle of December, and the world had been blanketed in snow for weeks. The kind of cold that bites at your skin and makes the air feel thick as you breathe it in. I had decided to take a trip out to a remote cabin in the mountains, hoping for some solitude and a chance to clear my head. The hustle and bustle of the city had worn me down, and I needed a break from everything. No distractions, just peace and quiet. I drove up a winding mountain road, the snowflakes drifting lazily down from the sky. My truck struggled a bit to maintain traction, but I made it through the thick trees until I finally reached the small cabin I had rented. The place was isolated, surrounded by dense woods, and the nearest neighbor was miles away. Perfect. After unloading my gear and setting up for the night, I lit a fire in the cabin's stone fireplace, the warm glow contrasting with the cold darkness outside. I settled into an old armchair with a blanket, sipping hot cocoa and watching the flames dance. Everything was still. The only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the occasional gust of wind outside. But then, just as I was beginning to feel at ease, there was a strange noise, like a twig snapping outside the cabin. I froze, my heart rate quickening. It wasn't the wind. The snow was deep, and any movement would make noise. I stood up and moved slowly to the window, peering through the thick frost on the glass. The forest was dark, but I could just make out shapes moving between the trees. Figures, maybe. I couldn't tell. My mind raced. Maybe it was just an animal or a few hikers. I tried to shake off the unease, but something about the way the shapes moved felt wrong. They weren't following any natural pattern, like they were lingering and pacing. I grabbed a flashlight, my hands trembling as I made my way to the door. I opened it cautiously, shining the beam of light into the night. The snow was thick, and the only thing I could see was the blanketed forest stretching out before me, the trees creaking in the wind. Then I heard it again, footsteps crunching in the snow behind me. I turned so quickly that I almost stumbled, but there was nothing there. Just the cold, empty space surrounding the cabin. I stepped back inside, locking the door behind me, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't help but feel that I wasn't alone. I'd heard of people being stalked or followed in places like this, but I never thought it would happen to me. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was all in my head, that the isolation was getting to me. I made some more tea, trying to calm my nerves, but the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. I couldn't concentrate on anything. Every little sound felt amplified, the wind moaning against the walls, the creaking of the wood underfoot. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Then my phone buzzed. I almost didn't want to look, fearing what it might be, but I pulled it from my pocket. There was a single text from an unknown number. The message read, "I see you." My stomach dropped. I quickly tried to call the number back, but the call went straight to voicemail. I tried sending a text, asking who this was, but I got no response. My eyes darted around the room, looking for something to defend myself with. I wasn't sure what I expected to happen, but I knew something wasn't right. The air felt thick with tension. I decided to check the cabin's security cameras. I had set them up around the perimeter before I even arrived, just to be safe. As I pulled up the camera feed on my phone, my heart skipped a beat. On the screen, I saw the figures again, this time much clearer. There were at least 3 of them standing just outside the cabin, staring into the windows. I backed away from the phone, dropping it onto the floor. My breath quickened. How long had they been out there? And why didn't I hear them? My instincts were telling me to get out of there, but the snowstorm outside made it impossible to see the road. I was trapped. Suddenly, there was a loud banging on the door. I jumped, frozen in place. The door rattled again, louder this time. I didn't know what to do. Should I hide? Should I confront them? My mind raced, but I stayed still, hoping they would just go away. Then, as if on cue, the banging stopped. There was complete silence for what felt like an eternity. I cautiously moved toward the door, slowly and quietly. I peeked through the peephole, but there was no one there. The snow had started to fall heavier, and everything outside was covered in a thick, white blanket. I checked the cameras again, but the figures had disappeared. It didn't make sense. I felt like I was going insane. Was I imagining it all? I had to get out of that place. It was too late to drive anywhere, but I knew I couldn't stay the night. I grabbed my coat and shoes and made my way to the back door, planning to hike down the mountain and find a way to safety. But just as I reached for the door handle, I heard something, louder this time, a distinct scraping sound, like someone dragging something heavy across the porch. My heart was pounding in my chest as I slowly turned around. I could see the silhouette of someone standing outside the door, just beyond the frosted glass. The figure was tall, hunched, and their movements were jerky, unnatural. I stood frozen, terrified, unable to move or speak. And then, without warning, the door swung open. The figure stepped inside, and I didn't even have time to react. They were closer now, only inches away. I could feel their breath on my face, cold and shallow. I opened my mouth to scream, but the words caught in my throat. The figure raised its hand, pointing a finger toward me, and in a raspy, barely audible voice it whispered, "You're not alone." And then everything went dark.